Well, it's the morning after the night before, budget night to be precise, with Joe Hockey's first rundown of the nation's finances being labelled pain with purpose.
Yeah, as anticipated, there are big hits, big cuts, and a lot of big worries for many Australians. And to break it down exactly what it means for you at home and how it's going to affect society, we'll get our finance guru, Scotty Hayward, again, who is in Melbourne. Scott, break it down for us. Will the budget see us back in the black, and who's going to be hurt?
Well, there's going to be a lot of pain, unfortunately, in the short term. And this morning I described the experience for most Australians as maybe taking their car for just a regular service where you thought you might get a grease and oil change and you're told, look, your transmission's not too good, let's put a bit of money into that. Look, your tyres probably not upgrading, not just yet, but let's put a bit of money into that. We might just tweak the engine as well. And unfortunately, that's where it's going to hit a lot of families. We're going to see, unfortunately, families having to pay up to $7 from the 1st of July next year to just go and see their GP. Of course, if they see the doctor 10 times in that year, there'll be no more fee and there'll be discounts for concession. On top of that, it's $5 for a script. That's going to frustrate a lot of pensioners. So it was a very tough night for a lot of people last night.
Scott, let's break it down, especially for individuals right now. As leaked beforehand, the pension age will rise to about 70. There's a new GP co-payment of $7 and a rise in the cost of prescription medication. But the other big hits were the reintroduction of the work for the dole and the deregulation of universities. Is this everything that's been confirmed? There was a lot of speculation.
Look, everything has to go through the Senate, of course, and I suppose Bill Shorten, who's the head of the Labor Party, and Christine Milne, the head of the Greens, are already coming out this morning with guns a-blazing, saying they're going to fight a lot of things. I think the big losers were, unfortunately, pensioners. They're going to actually have their pension frozen for the next 3 years, and then it's going to be in line with CPI rather than wages. So that's around about 2%, so that's going to be a little bit disappointing for them. On top of that, they are going to be paying more for petrol, and that starts on the 1st of August, which will also be in line with inflation as well. So that's going to be quite frustrating. For most families just waking up this morning, they're going to actually start to pay a little bit more. And then, of course, you've got the big one, which was the much talked about deficit levy, which I suppose you can say is a tax or it isn't a tax. It doesn't really matter. For the next 3 years, from the 1st of July, if you're earning more than $180,000, you'll be hit with that 2% whack. So it's going to be pretty tough on budgets. A lot of families are also feeling the pinch this morning because, of course, the Family Benefit Part A and the Family Benefit Part B have sort of emerged. If you're a family with a couple of kids earning $120,000 a year, you're getting nothing. But if you're earning under $100,000, you're still getting a payment for your child up to the age of 6. So it's been very difficult for families waking up this morning. We're here in Melbourne. We'll be talking to them a little bit later on about some of the numbers that they've been crunching with, a couple with 3 children at school.
Scott, as you mentioned before, Mr Abbott promised no new taxes. No matter how you want to spin it, surely the deficit levy and the fuel excise are new taxes.
Look, they certainly are. It's going to be interesting to see how Joe Hockey markets the word levy, the word taxes. Of course, the Gillard government did introduce a flood levy that was 0.5%. That was, I suppose you could say, cushioned a little bit to the Australian population because we actually saw those horrendous floods in Queensland and we were sort of happy to pay that levy. Now that we're paying 0.5%, we're just paying off what could be considered debt. So it's leaving a little bit of a bitter taste in people's mouths this morning. But you asked the question about when could we get back in the black. Well, there wasn't even a number thrown out last night. Of course, this financial year we're expecting a $49 billion deficit. Next year it'll be around about $30 billion and hopefully going down. But some of the numbers that I've crunched this morning is that we might not get back into surplus, which of course you've got to remember that Wayne Swan was sort of talking about it back in 2011, 2012. We'll get back into surplus. That number now could be pushed out to 2023 to 2024. So we've got a long time to wait. And yes, you're right. You also mentioned that if you're born after 1965, the age pension will now be pushed out to age 70. So you can only imagine that if you're born in the 70s or if you're born in the 80s over the next 5 or 10 years, what sort of age you could be looking at getting retirement benefits. We could see people born in the 70s and 80s in coming years, in coming budgets, not getting entitlements to the age pension until maybe 75, or could you believe maybe even the age of 80.
Scott, talk about the surplus for a minute, if you could. How important is it for a nation to move towards a surplus if it means that the most vulnerable people in the community, in society, are going to be put through the ringer?
Well, last night at the start of the speech from Joe Hockey, he did say that he had inherited, so to speak, a $677 billion debt. Whether that be true or not, it doesn't matter. That's the landscape we now have. So he's got a lot of work to get back into surplus. And I suppose when you are in government in your first term, Barack Obama did it where he taxed the wealthy. And last night we saw Joe Hockey do the same. to make some hard decisions early on, you know, put the stop button on and make people, I suppose you could say, more accountable for their actions. But he really is wanting more Australians back at work. He's trying to encourage people to go back to uni and get in courses. But it's a very, very difficult job market out there, and where he was trying to leverage some positive spin on the whole budget was monies being spent on medical development, which was a bit of a surprise. That was only leaked at about 5:30 last night. And of course, the $11 to $12 billion they're going to spend on infrastructure, which of course is their catalyst for jobs and jobs growth going forward in the next 3 to 5 years.
Scotty, thanks for that wrap up. We're going to cross back to a little bit later on this morning and get your take from what it means with the actual family whose kitchen you're in right now. Stay away from the fridge, mate.
I'm going to get back into the croissants.
Chat to you soon. Thanks, Scott.